I think the Pacers story is an interesting one, right? Like, I'll just take you to my life for an example. And one of my friends in coaching, a mentor of mine, is Chris Beard, who's the head coach at Ole Miss. And he's always encouraged me to take a head coaching job. And his big thing was like, look, the line you need to use is for any of these programs is if you want the same result, try it the same way. If you want a different result, you got to try it a little differently. And I was talking to another buddy of mine who was applying was a finalist for a head coaching job, and he's like, "Hey, I was like, well, what would you do to differentiate yourself?" He's like, "We'd play crazy fast and shoot a ton of threes, and we feel like at this level, with our lack of money, we got to be different than everybody else. We got to play differently." And I think the Pacers, I think they do that. They play differently. They don't have a superstar talent. They don't. I think Tyrese Halliburton is a tremendous player. And I think the overrated mantra that follows him, because that's what he was voted by NBA players, is just one, they don't respect him, and two, most importantly, I think they just think he runs his mouth too much, considering he hasn't done enough in the playoffs. That's not me saying it. It's my guess of why he was voted as such, because I didn't know he was super highly rated. I didn't know that actually happened. So it just feels like that's their way of saying, I don't like that guy. I don't like that guy, so this is what I'm going to do. But he's been amazing, and they just smoked the Cleveland Cavaliers. Here's Halliburton talking about their team style.
We're different than every other team in the NBA. You know, we don't just have one guy who scores all the points, or, you know, I think we defeat teams in different ways. We move the ball. The ball is flying. We got a lot of different guys making shots, making plays. We've preached our depth all, for the last couple of years, and, it's paying off now. So.
Yeah, I think they're trying to do something a different way, and I think they're accomplishing that task. Here's Halliburton talking about the Pacers being in the conference finals for a second straight year.
We're not done. We still got, ways to go, but it's a special feeling, man. And, watching the lottery last night, I remember being our representative at the lottery a couple of years ago and not wanting to, to go back. So it's special, man. This group is special.
Yeah, it is. It's incredibly special. Unbelievably special to see this. And to see a team that we think of the NBA as 2 stars or 3 stars in every team in order to accomplish a task, and here there's not. And then you have Rick Carlisle, who's widely regarded as an amazing offensive coach. Go back to his days, obviously, in Dallas. And what he's put together is pretty special, but he says the job is not done.
Look, we're talking about 8 more wins for an NBA championship. The league is wide open this year. I mean, there are a lot of great teams, but it's wide open, and we've just got to keep believing.
There's still 8 games. That's a long 8 games away. Now, they're very likely to run the benefit of playing the Knicks, not the Celtics. And even though the Knicks are healthy and the Celtics are not, and the Knicks, it's going to be a snake pit to go into New York, there's a lot of history there with Indiana and the Knicks. I think it's a bloodbath of a series. The point is, you're not going against the defending champions and the best team, and the Celtics gives you a better chance of competing and winning, no matter how hot the Knicks are, no matter how well the Knicks are playing. And you're going against a coach that traditionally wants to grind it out, players shorten his bench, play them longer minutes against a team that wants to play more guys, fewer minutes, and win with their depth. And it's going to be a fascinating series, again, if they match up with the Knicks. But I think just more than anything, it's the idea of, hey, when you're not the Lakers, when you're not the Celtics, when you're not one of those marquee franchises or somebody that has drafted a Victor Wembanyama or Kobe Bryant or Tim Duncan or, Steph Curry doesn't develop under your watch, doesn't become the greatest shooter we've ever seen. All those things, you have to be different. And what happens is, my guess is teams will start to copy that style. You know, the layman says, well, Moneyball didn't work. That's not true. They didn't win a World Series with it. They had incredible success with virtually no financial investment from a franchise. And, oh yeah, by the way, while it may not have worked to winning or getting to a World Series with the A's, it did with the Diamondbacks. It did with the Rays. It's the same model. And how many teams copied that model? And many of them had success with it. You know? The Wildcat formation, which frankly is partially old single wing, so it's actually kind of going back to how people used to play some back in the day. But did it work long term with the Dolphins? No, but has it lasted in football? Yeah, it's still a part of people's packages. They find a way to play 11-on-11 football and snap the ball directly to one of their best runners or wide receivers, and now all of a sudden the blocking becomes easier and tackling becomes harder. But it started with a high school coach who was an offensive coordinator at Arkansas. Then he later, obviously, Gus Malzahn became a head coach, still is now. But the point is that he brought something that people used to do and then did it differently in college football than anybody else, and somebody picked up on it in the NFL and started using it, and it spread. That's what this is. So I think there's something subtle and different, and it's a great lesson for so many of us. Even people like me who do a radio show. Forget about my basketball team. Right? Can you do it a little bit differently than somebody else? And it won't always work. It won't always be well regarded. But if you try and do the same thing the same way with lesser resources than somebody else, what do you think? You know what's going to happen. You're forever going to be behind the same product that has better resources. That's just how it works. So, again, maybe I'm taking this to mean too much. Maybe I'm taking, because usually, again, like what Cowherd has always done, he uses business metaphors for metaphors in sports, to metaphor for sports. Sure. I'm using one in sports to metaphor for business or for life. If you want the same outcome, try the same thing. The Pacers have tried it different, and they're getting better results than traditionally you would get.